Hello, I'm P. Roberto Garcia, Distinguished Clinical Professor of International Business and Director of the Indiana University CIBER. Welcome to this special edition of our CIBER Pedagogy webinar series on the Kelley Global Foundation's core. As we know, faculty across the world rapidly transitioned to online teaching this spring, and the Kelley School of Business was no different. To further complicate the situation, about 20 of my colleagues found themselves having to also transition what is typically a 10-day international travel experience for the students to an online format. We thought it would be helpful to hear from a few of them how they approached this task. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest today, my colleague, Alex Lopes, Clinical Professor of Operations and Decision Technologies, Director of the Technology Consulting Workshop, and Grant Thornton Scholar. Alex, thank you for joining us today.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation, Roberto.
All right. Tell us about your course. Give us a brief summary of this course, its objectives and outcomes.
Sure. So I have been teaching in this program, essentially P272, which is our global core classes for many years now. I started classes in Brazil, then I moved to China, and then this year was the first time that you were going to go to Ghana, right? And of course, you know, surprise, we're not going anymore. So the main idea behind going to Ghana was really to extend the set of offerings for our global core to Africa. We have had some previous courses in South Africa, but South Africa has such a distinct history, right, versus the rest of Africa. And of course, Africa is a big continent, 50 plus countries, but we wanted to go a little bit deeper into other areas of Africa that had not been explored yet. So, you know, the desire was to really use Ghana as a portal to understand Africa better. And the objectives were essentially to really understand, you know, the progress, the economy, the opportunities, the growth that Africa has had over the last years, and through the lenses of Ghana as our main focus. You know, Ghana is, of course, is a democracy. You know, Ghana has been said that it is the Africa for beginners. It is a very calm and very organized country, and has a very nascent infrastructure, good growth, economic growth in the last years. So it was a great opportunity for us to really get deeper into Africa, deeper to understand, you know, the continent a little bit better, and offer students the opportunity to really be in the forefront, right, of the next big growth area. That was very important for us. It's really the next frontier in business.
Now, had you gone to Ghana before, either on other trips or to prepare for teaching this course?
No, so that was, I mean, that has never stopped me before for doing things. So that always been a matter of challenge. But one interesting thing is that Kelley has had some very interesting previous engagements in Ghana, right? And so we have a Globase, MBA Globase class that goes to Ghana, has gone to Ghana for many years now. We have had some previous trips going to Ghana several years ago. We have some current engagements about our social institute to also go to Ghana for perhaps some alternative spring break. And you have other faculty at IU who have regularly taken students to Ghana. Cecilia Obeng from the School of Public Health was big health in the beginning. So, you know, so even though I had not gone to Ghana before, right, I have taken students to a variety of different countries before. You know, at Kelley, for example, I have taken students to Guatemala, to Brazil, to China, to Thailand, to India. So, you know, I felt that, you know, with the resources we had available, it was you know, very feasible to open up this new class and really, you know, give the students an experience that they were not able to get before.
So you unexpectedly had to switch to online. So what was your approach for creating the online experience? What was your primary objective? What did you want the students to take from it?
Absolutely. So this was, of course, very shocking, right? I mean, you were anticipating the possibility for months, but when the news came, was really just 15 minutes before my first class with the students. That's when we got the news that
Wow.
the school would not resume classes, at least for a while, would move online. And of course, at that point, everybody felt, well, very likely we're not going to Ghana. So it was a really big disappointment. And one thing I want to mention, that those students have been excellent. I mean, they were excellent in the course. And that is something is unique in terms of going to Ghana, which is the fact that there is a self-selection mechanism going on, right? So they know, they knew they were going to a new course, who have never offered a new course in Ghana before. So they knew the study tour part would be new, and they knew they were not having sometimes the same level, perhaps, of comfort in terms of hotels or facilities, right? So this group has always already prepared to deal with challenges, I guess, in comparison to other more established courses. So when the news came, the idea was pretty much, well, if we cannot go to Ghana, right, can we bring Ghana to the students? That's just pretty much the best way to define that. But there's another thing that came to mind at that point, which was, well, the objective of the course was always to use Ghana as a portal for Africa, right? So can we perhaps, if you move the course online and you start with a speaker series, not limit ourselves to Ghana, but expand our horizons a little bit more and involve people who have been working in other parts of Africa, or especially in Nigeria, which is, again, West Africa. So, there's at least that sense of regional focus, right? But also looking at Africa in general. So that was the main objective that I had. And it was, it was an interesting adventure to actually put this together, but it was very successful. We end up with about 19 different speakers, and I can tell a little bit more about the story, but the summary went up with 19 different speakers from different areas of Africa, and we also used the opportunity to start a project. The original class plan was to really go to Ghana, visit some companies, visit some organizations, learn about the culture, learn about the business, but we did not envision as much to have an opportunity to do a consulting project, right?
Mhm.
And once we figured out, hey, we have this space, we have this opportunity to kind of rethink this a little bit. Can we come up with an online project that we can do with a local organization? And we end up exactly doing that. We end up this 1 week project about social media that was very successful.
So I would imagine that there was quite a bit of disappointment when you learned that the travel portion of the course was being canceled. But besides the consulting projects, were there any other new opportunities that emerged as a result of the program being moved online?
Exactly. Yeah, that took place. It was disappointment at first, right? And I think, there's still, even if the course was over, there's still disappointment, right? That is
Mhm.
definitely, something that has to be said. I mean, we're not there this first time. But what we saw was a lot of the Kelley, family and the Kelley network really doing a lot of work for us. So one of the things that I did, essentially, because we're not being able to go, right, was, okay, how do you get people in? And because we had never gone to Ghana, right, so I could not rely on previous visits. Okay, so, I go to China, I can contact my people in China. I go to Brazil, I can contact companies I have, worked with in Brazil. Ghana was new, right? So we did not have that established, a network there yet that we could rely on. So I start contacting my network, right? Network from alums, network from different, people, consulting companies, contacted, Deloitte and UI and Protiviti and Grant Thornton and a variety, and PwC. We contact former students who are from Ghana. And really, they responded fantastically. It was just such a good and a response in terms of interest of doing something, right? So there are two people in particular that were absolutely fantastic. One was Aubrey Anand, who is a former MSIS student, and he came up. He's now has his own company. He worked for PwC for a while, and now he has his own company. And we end up with a consulting project. Actually, he came to class. He was scheduled to come to class physically before we shut down, and he still came virtually. And he put us in contact with this organization in Ghana called Health Keepers Network, and essentially they empower women. They give women essentially they act as sales agents for medical, simple medical or prophylaxis or healthcare items. It can go anything from mosquito nets to condoms to hand sanitizers, right? And the women go door to door, essentially sell that. So that complements their income and gives more access to healthcare to population who sometimes cannot really go to the pharmacy or to buy those items. So that led to this whole project, right? The other part was someone called Owen Ogufere. He's from PwC, and Owen kind of adopted our class. And all of a sudden, he started connecting us with a lot of different people from Nigeria, from different parts of Africa, and high-level people. We had a bunch of CEOs coming to speak with the students. CEOs from Alliance in Nigeria, CEOs from Rec Center, which is a big, cloud and infrastructure company. We got people from the Nigeria Investment Promotion Commission. We got politicians. So that's what the opportunity came from, because before we're looking at a relatively small subset of people, right? And I think what the students took to this. I mean, it was an intense week, right? We had sometimes like four Zoom meetings per day at times,
Wow.
which, as you can imagine, it can be tough to have 4 Zoom meetings. But that's, I think, there is such an interesting set of speakers, right? Bring different perspectives, and again, high-level speakers, that
Uh-huh.
the students really got a lot of information, and they asked so many questions. I think that's what the other thing was very impressive. They were very engaged throughout. They asked so many questions, and it was really, really a very positive experience in the end.
Now, it's so difficult to create the international travel experience online, but were there any positive takeaways that the students expressed at the end?
Yeah, I think they were, I wouldn't say surprised, because, I could see during the engagement, right, throughout the class, that the students really seem to have enjoyed the experience, right? But I think several of them wrote to me after the class was over and say, like, well, yeah, we're still disappointed. We wish we had been to Ghana, right? That is nothing, in myself as well. There's nothing, that could actually replace that completely. But they wrote to me essentially saying, well, this turned out much better than expected.
Mhm.
Looking at the opportunities we had to connect with people, and the connections were not only business like, right? So what the fascinating to see was, sometimes I had a business person saying, well, you know what, we have some issues with government, right? We have some issues with that, and eventually the next um, speaker might be someone from government, right?
Mhm.
So we were able to see all these different perspectives in terms of different opinions about what is going on, but also we had a variety of different types of content, right? So for example, we had an NGO who works in Ghana with autism, right? With kids in the autism spectrum, and they were talking about what it took for them to create a new NGO, especially in a situation where sometimes autism, is more hidden, right? So it's not
Mhm.
acknowledged, and people, there's a little bit of perhaps even a kind of a shame about that, right? So how do you work in this context? How do you work these things that, sometimes are not, the same in the US? They're very different, right? And how do you get support for those? Um, and we have people who most of the interaction were personal, right? So we had someone from Nana Ahoy Larson from UI. She's from Ghana. You know, she just essentially mostly talk about her experience moving from Ghana to the US, right? Kind of giving that perspective from the other side. What it means to be an immigrant, right? What do you miss from Ghana? What kind of things that you do? We had other people, the Ajaya from Facebook, who talk about, you know, his experience about working with gun organizations, even though he's located in the US. So that was such a huge, you know, different set of contents that I think the students, you know, many of them wrote to me after, like, we got it. I mean, you know, we feel much more prepared now to actually do business in Africa and be an international business person than you were before, and the whole experience was much more valuable than you could ever dream of. And that was very, very satisfying to hear that.
Great. What were the important lessons you gained from this experience, Alex?
I think the main one that I've repeated that talking with some other people is, what's the whole saying, like, necessity is the mother of invention, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, sometimes, you know, life throws us some weird situations, right? And all of a sudden you have to react to that, and that is I think really two ways of dealing. Like, you know, one is like, you know, complain and whine and suffer, like, oh, you know, this is so unfair. The other one is, okay, let's really take it and try to, you know, think what's really important here, right? So the really important to me was always, we need to make our Kelley students, right? We actually need to make all business students better prepared to understand what is happening in Africa right now. To understand that, you know, sometimes the stereotypes, sometimes, you know, that idea that, you know, Africa is in constant turmoil, right? Yeah, parts of Africa, unfortunately, are in constant turmoil, but a lot of the continent is really emerging as this new big center of growth, of innovation, right? And there's understanding that sometimes what works outside the continent might not work in the countries there, because you have to adapt, you have to be creative, right? And that message, right? If that's the main message that we want to convey to our students, that message can be conveyed in different ways, right? It can be conveyed by going to the country, but it can also be conveyed by simply, you know, getting a really nice set of speakers who are passionate about, you know, what they're doing, who are passionate about the prospects of Africa, who are seeing the innovation taking place in the continent, and really can transmit that to the students. I think that was a big lesson for us.
Great. Are there any final comments or advice you wish to leave for our audience before we end this discussion?
I think the main idea here, you know, for us is really, you know, I kind of already alluded to that, but you know, it's the importance of internationalization, right? The importance of really this education and really taking hold of all the opportunities that you have, right? I think the word that we're going to emerge into after the whole, you know, COVID crisis is a world where different opportunities are going to be much more prevalent, right? So Africa, for example, as a continent, is going to have so many new opportunities to be a different focus for supply chain that perhaps it is not right now, right? But also opportunities as educators to really understand, you know, having this set of different resources, right? That might be online, that might be in residence, that might bringing people from Africa. I mean, we had the speakers from London, we had the speakers from Washington, from Seattle, from Texas, from Lagos, from, you know, Accra, from Cape Coast. So having, you know, the world is really something that is so open right now, and we can make, you know, the best of these opportunities. So that's something that I think is important for us as educators. And the other thing, more perhaps at Kelley perspective, is just the power of the network. You know, I mean, you always hear about, you know, all the 110,000, I don't know how many the numbers are right now, but it's just that, you know, that network really is so helpful in terms of giving you access to people, right? And they're so willing to help, right? And just, I need someone who can talk about gun in Africa, and all of a sudden, you know, we I got a lot of good responses, right? And finally, it's just, not lose the momentum as well. So for example, one of the things I did in LinkedIn, I posted some of the things they were doing, right? And I got so many positive responses from people from Ghana, from business people in Ghana, from educators, from professors, that, hey, if you ever need any help, let me know. I'll be happy to be involved in the future. I think that a lot of people were disappointed to learn that it was a class, so it was not like an open, speaker series. So I had to kind of, calibrate the message later on. But just the contacts that are open, by connecting with people, those are so important, right? So it's not losing that momentum. That if you do something that I think is appreciated, brings people together, keep doing that, right? And keep building on top of that.
Well, thank you. This has been really, really wonderful, Alex. Thank you. Congratulations for delivering such a good course under difficult circumstances. Congratulations. It's great to be a colleague with you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Roberto. And again, one thing that I want to just make a red register here is that, Roberto was actually the person who introduced me to international programs at Kelley back in 2011 when I first joined Kelley. So, Roberto and I have been working for many years together, and I still remember going to Brazil, right? In our
So,
KIPS Brazil back in 2012, I believe.
yes, and then you followed it up with a trip to Peru with the Globase students. Yep.
Yeah. So that's a lot of good things, and so my thanks to Roberto for opening the doors at Kelley International Progress for me. That was fantastic. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Alex. And thanks everyone for watching this video discussion. If you have any questions about this video or suggestions for future pedagogy topics, please contact cyber@indiana.edu.